My objective today is simple. I would like to make a one-stop shop video for minimalism in general. I'd like to do that by answering all of the internet's questions about minimalism in general that I've seen consistently over the past 10 years of being a minimalist. Before we jump in, I want to give you one caveat, and that is the answer to every single one of these questions could be, it depends. Because minimalism is such a personal thing, it is adjusted, customized, and curated to your personal needs. With that in mind, let's get into it. There'll be timestamps for all the different questions down in the description if you want to jump around. What is minimalism? Here's my elevator pitch. Minimalism is intentionally living with only the things you really need so you can spend your time, money, and energy on the things that matter most. This is generally pretty close to the commonly accepted definition of minimalism as a lifestyle. There are two others I'd like to share that I think have their own nice nuances. Renee from The Fun Sire's Life defines minimalism as the idea that you choose what you value and you live with only that. Or the Minimalists define minimalism as a tool that can assist you in finding freedom. What are the rules of minimalism? There are no rules to minimalism, there is just guidelines. Ultimately, minimalism is a tool that can help you live a life that aligns with your personal values. So at the end of the day, you make your own rules. Also, minimalism is not static. For me, this looks very different from when I was living at home with my parents during high school to moving out into my own place by myself, and then getting married and having my wife move in. And this will look different in 10 years. It would also look different if I lived in a more urban environment or a more rural environment as opposed to the suburban neighborhood we live in right here. How do I start decluttering? I'm overwhelmed. Decluttering is one area where it is actually helpful to choose some rules that work for you. I'd like to share what the internet has to say, as well as a list of other possible rules you could use while decluttering, because it's just an overwhelming process. The first one I will recommend is the container theory or the container method by Dana K. White. She has a video on it on YouTube, as well as a lot of really helpful other decluttering things. Let's see what the internet has to say. This user mentions Marie Kondo as a very helpful resource, and she is indeed. If you haven't checked that out already, I'm not sure what you're doing. This user also mentioned some other helpful questions to ask. If I lost everything in a fire, what would I buy again? Did I use this in the past year? If not, get rid of it. Did I forget I had this? If so, get rid of it. Do I need this? Do I love this, or is it just good? Only keep things that you freaking love. This user says the first time you declutter, you're not going to get everything. It's almost like a practice round, because once you get rid of the obvious excess, then you really start to get a sense of what you actually need. This user said, if I'm unsure if I want to let an item go or not, I ask myself this question. If I didn't have this item, would I seek it out? Would I want it if someone offered it to me? Some other great places to start would be to start as small as possible. So maybe it's just your wallet or your purse or a single drawer or a closet. Another thing that we didn't mention yet was getting rid of backups and duplicates. Generally, those are things that we don't need. They're just excess. Another great way to do this is the 30-day minimalism game from The Minimalists. Basically, this brings someone else into it and says, hey, let's get rid of one item on day 1, 2 items on day 2, 3 items on day 3, and so on and so forth until you've done 30 items by day 30 and you've gotten rid of a ton of things over the month. This is a super fun way because it keeps you and the other person accountable. A few other thoughts for tricky items are, would I buy this exact item again right now? If I had to move tomorrow, would I take this with me? If the house burned down and I got an insurance check, would I use a portion of that money to repurchase this item? This is one of my favorites. It's the box in the basement method. Basically, this is taking a box, putting the things into it, and putting it in the basement with a date written on it 1 to 3 months from now. If it's still in the box after that time has passed and you haven't gone to get it, just close up the box and donate it. Digitizing. This has been another element that's been very helpful for me in the decluttering process. I have 2 thoughts here. Number 1, if you digitize something, make sure you have a backup of it in case of fire or hard drive failure. Another great tool that I just found recently was Google Photoscan. It's an app on your phone that allows you to quickly digitize old photos. It's not the same caliber quality you'd get with a professional scanner, but for most photos, that's not the whole point. For documents, I just use the built-in scanner in Google Drive for pretty much everything. Do you regret getting rid of things? Most people tend to agree. The overwhelming answer is no. People don't regret getting rid of 99.9% of items. For me personally, I only regret getting rid of 3 or 4 things over the last 10 years, and they've all been non-replaceable personal items, things with a story or something like that. In general though, the ROI of minimalism has been so worth those few mistakes. I will also say I don't remember 99.9% of the things I've gotten rid of. At this point in my life, I assume it's been thousands and thousands of things I've gotten rid of, and I don't even remember them. This Reddit user said, I am a recovering hoarder. This is one of the emotional issues I struggle with when purging. But the vast majority of things I've thrown away or donated to gift shops or sold are out of sight, out of mind. It's worth it. Missing a few things is kind of like bittersweet memories. I miss them, but I'm proud of the space I've carved for peace. While I was researching for this, I found an article by Maya Lee on her blog, Nourishing Minimalism, that basically pulls off of Reddit 10 things that people have generally said they regret getting rid of and end up buying again. I think the most interesting part of this is that most of these items on this list could be remedied with this suggestion, and that is the 20/20 rule. So this is a rule that was popularized by the Minimalists. The idea of this rule is basically if you can replace an item in 20 minutes for $20, then you can feel free to get rid of it. At this point with inflation, for me it's closer to like the 30/30 rule. Based on where I live too, if I can replace it for under $30 in under 30 minutes, then there's no reason for me to keep it. Is it minimalist to have a storage unit? How do you deal with just-in-case items? It depends. For most people, it's important to define the difference between just-for-when items and just-in-case items. The difference is important but simple. To quote Joshua Fields Milburn, nobody purchases their toilet paper 1 square at a time, their soap 1 droplet at a time, their toothpaste 1 nurdle at a time. We buy a small stock of each of these products just for when we'll need them. I think an important question to ask is how often has that just-in-case item actually saved you versus just sitting in the basement or sitting in the garage taking up space. How do minimalists feel about collecting things? I think it's totally up to you. Personally, I've chosen not to have any collections. The closest thing to a collection I have is my disc golf discs. This is a bag of Frisbees that I use to go play disc golf. Each one is carefully curated in my bag because I play pretty seriously. It's helpful to have multiple discs. I also have a few well-seasoned backups of discs that I throw frequently in the basement, ready to go when I need them. Let's see what the internet has to say. Jay Renberg said, you don't need to get rid of anything if you don't want to. Minimalism is about owning only what makes you happy, not owning the fewest possible number of items. If you love records, own and listen to records. If you like looking at posters, own and look at posters. If you enjoy physical books instead of Kindle, own and read those books. This user says, if they're displayed somewhere in your home and they make you happy when you look at them, by all means, keep them. If they're just shoved in a closet somewhere and forgotten about for years at a time, then they're not really adding anything to your life. This user said, I sorted what actually meant something to me versus what I was just holding on to out of habit or guilt. I took pictures of some things before letting them go, donated what was in good shape, and kept a small box of favorites. What about physical media versus digital media? This landscape has changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years, clearly, where it was kind of the Wild West of streaming for years, and now it's kind of at the point where you pay to watch ads. And so this is highly personal, but I saw a lot of people being very excited about keeping their physical media. here's what the internet had to say. This user said, get one of those old school CD/DVD sleeve binders and store your media in it. There's nothing wrong with collecting as long as the collection is mindfully curated. This user said, I have a sizable Blu-ray and, as of this summer, 4K UHD collection. Probably around 300 titles capacity across 2 shelving units. It has occasionally maxed out or at least come close to being full, but when that happens, I use this as a reflection exercise to go through and call the things that haven't gotten the rewatch value I hoped for. It's all about curating what is worth having access to when the urge strikes. And in my case, what needs to be seen in the highest image and sound quality available. This user said, I have minimal stuff and infinite books. I prefer to own few clothes, not much furniture, not many electronics, not keep a big stash of personal care products, minimal hobby supplies, but I love having a personal library. I think most minimalists feel this way. This person commented a pirate flag and said, if corporations don't play by the rules, why should consumers? So ultimately, pick an option that aligns with your values. One option we use all the time is actually physically going to our local library and checking things out. How to be a minimalist living with a person or people who are not minimalists. A couple general and important thoughts. Number 1, respect their decision. It is their stuff, it is not yours. Number 2, lead by example. You don't need to shove it down their throat, but look how nice your space is when it's nice and clean and minimal. Maybe they'll like it and consider doing some of that in their own space. Number 3, control your space, not the shared spaces or their stuff, but your space first, and then maybe you can have some conversations about the shared spaces and find some compromises there. Number 4, communicate out of love. If you prioritize your stuff or the lack thereof over love for that person, you're kind of missing the point. This goes back to what the minimalists say all the time. Love people, use things, because the opposite never works. The internet has some really solid ideas and lots of really bad ones. Here's some of both. This user said, I think the only solution is to live well with less and wait for them to ask you about it. They may never. This user says, if you need a carbon copy of yourself, go find one and leave this woman alone. This user said, value and embrace differences, my friend. My fiance has a minimalist approach to life, whereas I tend to be more eclectic. In our home, we each have our own spaces. Mine is far less minimalist, while theirs adheres to simplicity. We don't impose our styles on each other. Instead, we find common ground through compromise. After all, love transcends lifestyle choices. And some bad ideas. This user said, get tape and separate the minimalist side of the house from the non-minimalist side. This user said, go extreme minimalism and ditch friends and family. Pets too. This user said, declutter your partner. Should I sell, donate, or throw away these items? Joshua Becker sums up his opinion on his blog. If you don't desperately need the money, you should always donate to a local charity whose mission you believe in. The only exceptions are valuable items or large items you are unable to transport yourself. I've personally found that giving away things has been much more emotionally satisfying than trying to sell them in most cases. Here are some takes from the internet. This user said, if you think about how much effort is involved in selling, taking photos, writing a description, responding to random people, scheduling a meetup, the actual meetup, and then think about how much your time is worth, that'll give you the answer. It varies for everyone. For me personally, around $40 to $50 is the threshold. This user said, honestly, I never have the energy to sell, so it's always either donate or trash for me. This user said, I find that if I price things for about half of what they're worth, they move much quicker and easier, and it's just what I prefer. So something worth $200 on the used market, I would sell for $100 to $125. I let my phone blow up with replies and just pick whoever seems the easiest to deal with. How do I handle sentimental items? I think the most important element here is to be gentle with yourself. Generally, when something is sentimental, it's connected to a grieving process. And so just give yourself some time and grace. You don't need to make a decision on this right now. One recommendation from the Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning recommends having a shoebox full of sentimental items and kind of using the container method to limit that. Of course, it doesn't need to be a shoebox. It can be bigger or smaller depending on your needs. In a blog post, Joshua Fields Millburn recounts his journey with his mother's possessions. I realized I am not my stuff. We are more than our possessions. Our memories are within us, not within our things. Holding on to stuff imprisons us. Letting go is freeing. You can take pictures of items you want to remember. Old photographs can be scanned. An item that is sentimental can be useful for someone else. One interesting approach I found to decluttering sentimental items was the sensory approach. I found this on Simple by Emmy. What has been missing from the conversation around sentimental items is an inclusion of our senses and the interplay between our senses, our memories, and our emotions. A sensory approach allows us to 1, understand why we want to hold on to a physical sentimental item because of how we experience it, and 2, be able to more easily let go of sentimental items that aren't as meaningful to us because of this awareness. I just thought that was interesting. I'd never seen that perspective before. Consuming less. Life has a natural tendency to become filled with more. We are rarely looking to downgrade, to simplify, to eliminate, to reduce. Our natural inclination is always to accumulate, to add, to upgrade, and to build upon. How do I stop buying stuff? Here's a few things that have been helpful for me over the years. Number 1, don't shop as a hobby. Don't shop for fun. Shop with a specific, planned ahead purpose. You know what you're getting, you go in, get the thing, and you leave. The second thing has been you can appreciate things without owning them. I've found a much greater appreciation when I happen to be in a store for things. This is nice, but I don't need to own it. Now, some people love shopping, some people don't. I'm one of those people who doesn't love shopping, so I wanted to share some perspectives from the internet. This user said, stop looking for things to buy, stop viewing videos of must-have items, stop browsing shops online or in person, stop looking at social media channels that encourage purchases. If you find something you really think you need, put it in your cart and leave it there for a week or a month, and then decide if you actually need it. This user said, I control my purchases by making a parking list of things I need I might like to purchase. By listing them together, it forces me to compare the prices, relative need, and use to cost ratio. I denote the strength of the emotional want, how often I'll actually use it, whether the item has multiple uses, and finally what I'm giving up to satisfy the urge to own the item. As I review the list over time, I've noticed that I'll cross off items that seemed important at the time, but my interest has waned after the initial idea cooled off. One final thought here is when we're buying something, we're often just looking for something to do. And so a great way to get around buying something is to just go find something free to do. In the summer where I live, there's always stuff going on that's free, outside, and of course, the library is open year-round. What about impulse purchases? This largely depends on your purchasing habits. I personally, as a rule, don't make impulse purchases anymore. For me, it goes on the list like the user above mentioned. I also have a 24-hour rule for items that cost under $30, so I don't allow myself to buy an impulse purchase if it's under $30 unless I wait 24 hours. Usually the need for that thing has just gone away. If it's a larger item, then I have a 1-month rule. So that needs to sit on that list for a month before I make that purchase. If I want it in a month, I can still have it. Another thing that's worked well for me is having savings goals for bigger things that I actually want. When I compare that impulse purchase to the bigger purchase, the impulse purchase pales in comparison. Let's see what the internet has to say. This user said, I don't store my payment information or enable one-click purchasing if it's offered. Manually typing my payment information makes me think more before buying. This user said, I find grabbing something from the library on a regular basis satisfies what I call my Happy Meal toy itch. Sometimes I just need something new, even if I'll be bored with it in a week. Would you pay more for something designed to last 10+ years? Well, it depends. I'll give you a few examples from my own life. I have two sets of tools in my life. I have my personal tools and my professional tools. This video is being filmed on one of my professional tools right now. Basically, if you don't know much about my story, I've run a video production company for the last 7 years. And for my professional tools, the things that I use to earn my living, I have spent more on the higher quality version of the item. In this case, some of these stands I have will last 30 years. Some of the microphones are meant to last 10 plus years. Anytime I bought a cheaper version of them, things tend to break with the heavy use. On the flip side though, for my personal tools, I've set a rule for myself that I buy the cheap version first, and if I break it, then that allows me to buy the more expensive version. In my entire lifetime, I've only broken 3 tools in total, so this choice has been very worth it for me. Most of the time we don't need the high-end thing. In general, the cheaper version will often do. There are always exceptions, it depends, but this is my general philosophy on buying something that lasts versus buying the cheap version. Another key thing that we found out, especially as planned obsolescence has become more and more common in nearly all of our products, is that a higher price tag does not always mean higher quality. If you want to see people getting really unreasonable on the internet, go hang out on the Buy It for Life subreddit and people will find a good reason for you to buy the expensive version of something. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay, let's see what the internet has to say. This user said, if you can buy super cheap, the truth is buy cheap first. Buy expensive later if it turns out to have value. This user said, my rule is to buy for who you are today and not for a hypothetical future you. This user said, choose vintage/secondhand whenever you reasonably can. Choose items that were built before capitalism drove companies to tank their product quality in the name of ongoing profits. And this user said, honestly, I'm not a buy it for life person. I have tried out vetted brands before and most suck. A lot of things are not meant to last forever. I'm more inclined towards thrifting or buying pre-owned items as it is more sustainable anyway. Again, this is totally up to you. This is just my opinion, plus the opinions of some people on the internet. Should I stock up on products that are on sale? The internet has been very split on this one, so it depends. It's up to you is a great answer, but here are some different takes. This user says, deals are just marketing. You get a better deal by not spending money. This user said, I no longer stockpile anything. I have a budget which I manage. Just replenish what you need when you need it. This person said, let the store stock the extras. Your home is not a warehouse. This user said, I keep 3 to 6 months supply of some things that I use a lot. If the house ever felt crowded with them, I'd cut back. And this user said, I think minimalism is compatible with stockpiling as long as what you're stocking up on are consumables that you actually use and not just good deals. One of my rules is if I'm willing to pay full price for something, then I will go ahead and buy it on sale, especially if it's a consumable item. Trying to be a minimalist has made me obsess over my possessions more rather than less. Where did I go wrong? I think this is where perfectionism comes into the equation. Many of us who are minimalists also happen to be perfectionists, and we tend to obsess over things being just so. And when this is applied to, then I'm not buying a lot of things, I'm just buying one thing, so of course it has to be the best thing, we can often get hyper-fixated on that. This is sort of a, I'll be happy once I'm the perfect minimalist. And we all know that's not true. If we were chasing more stuff on the outside, chasing the perfect stuff also won't make us happy. Here are a few thoughts from the internet. This user said, decluttering/minimalism can be obsessively driven or triggered, just as collecting or keeping things can. Most things that are unhealthy on one end of the spectrum, hoarding and overbuying, can be just as unhealthy taken to the opposite extreme. This user said, I don't think minimalism requires loving your belongings. I think loving things can help motivate caring for them properly, but for some people, minimalism means losing any attachment to things. Lifestyle. Want to know how to make yourself instantly unhappy? Compare yourself to someone else. Isn't minimalism just a luxury you can't afford if you're poor? I saw a whole thread about this. This user said, minimalism is luxury. It's a lot easier to let go of stuff when you can afford reliable, high quality goods and you can afford to replace or repair anything that breaks. I was kind of floored when I saw this one, but then it occurred to me that minimalism really had its cultural heyday from 2011 to like 2016. Mainstream culture then kind of took a hold of minimalism and that whole aesthetic and really made it its own, and we saw a celebrity's version of minimalism. Matt D'Avella's latest video is actually all about this, and if you stick around to the end, you might even catch a little cameo of me in that video. Ultimately, minimalism is for everyone, regardless of your socioeconomic status. Does anyone live without blank? I saw this question filling in the blank with lots of different furniture items or possessions in general. Generally, yes, minimalists do choose to live without some things because it doesn't align with their values or suit their lifestyle or living situation. I've personally found a ton of value in lifestyle experiments. Times that I've intentionally gone without something, like if I wanted to try living without a table, I could just put the table in the basement for a week and try to function without that, see how it works, see if I like it, and if I don't, well, I can just move it back in. Over the last year, I've personally done a variety of experiments. About 6 months ago, I did an experiment where I tried to live with 100 things for an entire week. I've done experiments for like 2 months where I didn't wear my Apple Watch because I wasn't sure if it was actually adding value to my life. I've tried living without a desk setup for a few weeks. I'm constantly doing these small experiments in my life to see what currently aligns with my values, and it's kind of no harm, no foul if the experiment doesn't work out the way I thought it might. Overall, I think this is a great example of how personal minimalism can be to you. How many pieces of clothing do you have? There is no answer to the right amount of clothes to have, but there is a lot of different ways to look at this. Generally, minimalists tend to have some sort of capsule wardrobe, things that go with other things in a smaller number of items. Some people have taken this even further, and they have a uniform, basically multiples of the same thing that they wear every day. One project I thought was really interesting was Courtney Carver's project 333. This is wearing 33 items in your wardrobe, minus like undergarments and that kind of thing for 3 months. And then you can rotate out those items after 3 months. I think this would be a great way for someone to experiment with the idea of a capsule wardrobe as they're figuring out what they want to keep and what they want to get rid of. Some people choose to limit the number of clothes in their wardrobe to a specific set number. You certainly don't need to do this, but I saw everything from 100 items to 30 items and everything in between. I also saw a lot of people say I have far too many clothes, or a lot of people say I have far too few clothes. Minimalism with kids. I don't have personal experience with this, so I will defer to the experts. Here's what the internet had to say. One very common one I saw, and this applies to adults too, is the 1 in, 1 out rule, but in this case, it's allowing your kid to choose which one they want to keep and which one they want to get rid of, as long as it's age appropriate and it fits your kid. That might even include giving away the gift they just got in favor of keeping something else they already have. A lot of people also talked about the 2-bin rule, so 1 bin of toys is all they get to play with for a month, then that goes away, then the new bin comes out of toys, those get played with and they get rotated every month to keep things fresh and interesting without letting it overwhelm everything. Some people recommended letting all of your toys come from gifts rather than buying them yourself for your kids, which I thought was an interesting take. Another important element I kept seeing was to set a good example for your kids by limiting your own toys too. Joshua Becker said, if your life is caught up in always needing to own the latest fashion, technology, or product on the market, theirs will be too. And it would be unreasonable to expect anything less. Minimalism and gifts. The internet has many opinions on this. Ultimately, it depends on what fits your life and the people that you give gifts to and received gifts from. However, I would like to pause for a moment and think about the quote that the minimalists end every single one of their podcasts with. Love people and use things because the opposite never works. I personally believe that many minimalists take the no gifts thing far too far. I often see posts on Reddit of minimalists being angry at their family or friends who don't acknowledge their wishes for not receiving things. And I think this is a little bit ridiculous because the important part of this is it's still allowing the things to own you. Now, I will just personally say gifts, not important to me. I'm a terrible gift giver and a terrible gift receiver, but there are some really great ideas that the internet has for people who are minimalists in giving and receiving gifts. I'd like to share a few of those today because I've sort of been inspired for the next holiday season. This user said, I feel like I have a solid balance of gifts in my life. First, I don't really do big holidays with anyone I'm not extremely close with anymore. Christmas is for immediate family, my partner and I, and my closest friends. In those groups, I've already shared that we're trying to keep things minimal and that experiences, tickets, consumables, essentials like socks and underwear, or books are preferred. We have had basically no pushback on this. If I get something I don't want, which happens often enough, but they usually mean well, I thank them honestly because I am thankful that they thought of me and keep it for a couple months while finding a good home for it. Sometimes that home is me and I unexpectedly enjoy the item. Sometimes it's a donated item to a YMCA or other charity. Sometimes it's given to a different friend, and sometimes it does have to be in the garbage or at the secondhand store. This user said, as a minimalist, I love giving gifts that are an experience that the gift giver and I can do and share together. This user said they like slightly fancier versions of the things they need. Nice bar soap, nice hand soap, gift cards to a nice salon, gift cards to a healthy-ish restaurant, gift cards to a local eco shop. I'd also love to just sit down and eat with someone, not necessarily in a restaurant, but just at someone's home. It seems like so few do that nowadays. This user gives some suggestions, but also says what I think is the most important part. We also never refuse or complain about gifts, but accept them in the spirit that they were given. Experiences or possessions? This is a highly debated topic, both anecdotally and in the scientific community. A common argument in the minimalist community is that experiences are better than things. Some studies, like this one, concur with that. They say that experiences are better than things. Other studies, like this one, say that both experiences and things give an overall greater life satisfaction. Clearly, the internet has some opinions, so let's hear what they have to say. This user says, doesn't matter if you buy experiences or things, honestly. You should buy experiences or things that align with your values or will further help you refine or explore those values. Otherwise, it's meaningless, physical and mental clutter, and a waste of time and money. On her blog, Minimalism Life, Claire Devlin shares this thought. My family has especially loved the way that minimalism has taken our focus off of accumulating things. Instead, we focus on having new experiences together. We all enjoy traveling and have fun exploring new places as a family. And by spending less money on stuff, we have more money for travel. When we focus less on acquiring more possessions, there's room in the budget and calendar to add new experiences. I saw other people arguing that certain things enhance our experiences, and so a balance between the two is great. Again, this is minimalism. It's totally personal, so adjust according to your own needs. How do you deal with the social pressure of being a minimalist? I never had very much pushback. I've had a few pushbacks on gifts, especially early on, but the internet has certainly had some of that, and so I'd like to share some of their experiences. This user said, life's too short to feel pressured into living a life that doesn't align with your values. This user said, I have friends that like to shop, and I'll totally go along because I just like to look and touch things. I don't think anyone really cares that I don't buy anything. I think the key to avoiding social pressure is not to push your own ideals on others too, creating a mutual respect by being interested in what others are doing around you, and also don't announce your own actions to prove a point. On the flip side, this user said, I just stopped joining on friends' shopping days because it was hard not to buy anything. I've accepted that I'll wear a limited wardrobe both to work and parties. I've not gotten any comments, so the need to buy clothes was just all in my head. No one expects me to. This person said, parents don't always understand when their kids want to live differently than them. I wouldn't hold it against them, just keep trying calmly to show them that your path is okay too. Help. I feel limited or deprived with minimalism. Minimalism is about more, not less. It's about more time, more freedom, more experience, and more ability to focus. If you feel deprived or limited, you're likely not doing minimalism right for you. The internet, of course, has some opinions. This user says, minimalism isn't supposed to be punishment. This user said, I think the key to minimalism is to eliminate the things you don't use or need, not the things you do. It looks different for everyone. I have stuff, a full kitchen, lots of clothes, but they're things I use on a regular basis. You don't have to go extreme. Having your home with the things you value that are useful to you and things that make you feel good is what life is about. This user says, if you go minimalist by shaming yourself into it, then yep, that's gonna be bad for your mental health. If you do it because you want to and you enjoy it, that'll be good. I bought an expensive blank and now I realize I don't need it. What do I do? I've done this before more than once. Most recently, my parents retired and bought a cabin on a lake, and I'd minimized my fishing equipment years ago. Used to love to fish, but then life got busy. And so I did some research and I bought like $200 worth of fishing equipment. I bought a pretty expensive rod and reel combo instead of the cheap Walmart version, and a small tackle box with some fishing tackle in it. And I got to fish 4 or 5 times, and then my parents decided they didn't want to upkeep the cabin and they would rather travel, so they sold it. And suddenly I was stuck with some expensive, almost new fishing equipment. And it's been like 1 year since I used it today, which is the kind of limit I've given myself of, have I used it in the last 6 months and will I use it in the next 6 months? And I haven't. And so it's time for me to take those and list it on Facebook Marketplace. If it doesn't sell, then I will just donate it. I think the thing we often run into is this sunk cost fallacy that, well, because I spent money or time or a significant investment into this and whatever thing it is, that we need to keep it, maintain it, keep doing it. We don't. That's a logical fallacy that it is all too easy for us to fall for. Minimalism doesn't stop with just your possessions. Once you've done your initial decluttering and have kind of built this world where things don't own you, you can start applying these same concepts to other areas of your life. This can be your digital space, the activities you do, the people you spend time with, your schedule, how you manage your finances. The list can continue to go on. Clearly, I'm not going to go into that in this video because it's already long enough, but you're welcome to do some of that exploring on your own. I also have videos about pretty much every one of these topics on this channel if you want a deeper dive into those. I have 2 important things I want to mention to wrap this video up. The first is that all of this is based on what you value, what your personal values are. If you don't know what your values are, then you can't really make these decisions in an informed way. I have a video about finding your values. I will leave it linked as the first link down in the description. A lot of people have told me this is one of the most helpful things they have ever done. The other thing is I have a huge list of resources down in the description, books, YouTubers, blogs that all are about minimalism. These are things that I've enjoyed over the years and still continue to enjoy to this day, and maybe you will find some value in them as well. Thanks so much for being here, especially if you're still around. This was a long video. I hope this helped you, and we will see you in the next one.